So remember from JavaScript, a function is just a chunk of code that does something. In Python, we have some functions that are built in. We've already looked at some of those, like the input function, like the print function. We even took a look in this chapter at the round function. So let's say we wanted to round this number. This is your function, and inside parentheses, do you remember what that's called? Our argument. So some functions have a required argument to work. In this case, for us to round, we have to have a value to round. And when we run this, it returns a value of 7. Remember, when we run a function and it gives us something back, we say it's returning a value. But there are some optional arguments that we can apply to certain functions. So let's take the same number and say that we want it to round to 1 decimal place. This is an optional argument. You can just separate it with a comma inside the parentheses, and when we execute this function, it returns 6.8. It rounded to 1 decimal place. Always don't forget, if you need help, you can always get help within Python. So using the help function, giving an argument of round, it tells us what the round function does. It even tells us how we put our arguments in. So we put a number and then the number of digits that we want to round to. So functions and other resources in Python, they are coded in these components called modules. And the built-in module houses like the round function, but other modules exist and other functions inside of those modules. If we want to access those other modules, we have to import them. The math one is a pretty popular one, so let's import math. And once we do that, we can access its directory, which just gives us a list of the different functions in that math module. So we have things like sine, cosine, tangent, ceiling, floor, even pi is there. Now, if we get ready to use any of these functions, we have to use the module name dot and then the function. So if we want to see what math.pi returns, that gives us the value of pi. Okay, so you use the module name dot and then the name of the function. Similarly, if you wanted to access help on this, we would do math. Say we wanted to look at cosine, that's COS. It tells us our arguments that we need and then gives us a little definition here of what it does. Now, you could do this a little differently. So say there was only 1 or 2 functions that you wanted to import from math. You could do from math, import, and let's say pi and square root. Okay, so if you do that, then you don't have to include the module name when you access the function. So print, I could do pi square root 2, and it just prints those. See, I didn't have to put math dot. But we only use that if we just have a few. Typically, this either from math this way or this way will be the way that you want to import your modules. Is not super important. It's just something I thought was kind of fun that the book included. You can run Python programs from the terminal, from the command line interface. So this is something that I want to learn more about, so I'm going to include it. It might pique your interest as well. So if you are using a Mac, you can click this little search icon and let's search for terminal and just press enter and that opens your terminal. Okay, so I moved the program that we completed the case study. I think we named it Tax Calc, but I'm using the tax form. This is the one that the book created because that one's on my home computer. But I moved it to the desktop. So we need to know the directory in which it exists before we can actually open it. So we've got to get to that directory. So CD changes directory, and then I want to say desktop because that's where I posted it. So now you can see right here, this is changed to desktop, so that means I can access those files. If I do ls, that lists all the files that are on my desktop. And then if I want to run that program here, I can type Python03 and then the name of the file, taxform.py, And now it's going to run that program in terminal. So enter the gross income. I could say $30,000, number of dependents 2, and then it says the income tax is $2,800. So that's pretty cool that we can do that from the desktop. If you want to go back a directory, it's cd dash, or you can just close your terminal. But this is something that I'm interested in learning, so that's why I included it. I thought that was pretty cool that we can do that from terminal.